space race between the Soviet Union and the United States dominated the 60s. Who would be the first to put a man on the moon? To understand the reasoning behind this hard-fought competition, we first need to go back a couple decades. At the end of World War II, the United States has a nuclear monopoly. Soon after, the Soviet Union counters with their own nuclear weapon, and the superpower confrontation is on. The Soviet premier, Nikita Khrushchev, pledges to build a Soviet technological superpower.
He looked to a new Russia, a new Soviet Union with high technology that could do things that they've been promising for decades.
Khrushchev focuses on rocket technology. In 1957, they announce they have a powerful rocket, but Americans are skeptical.
How do you prove you got a rocket that big? You put it over someone's head.
In December 1957, the Soviets launch a satellite into space. It is called Sputnik, which roughly translates to fellow traveler. It travels on a path around the Earth where people can spot it in the sky. It emits a beeping sound, one that amateur ham radio operators can pick up. Meanwhile, US leaders are hearing an outcry of shock and panic from the American people. American technological superiority has been exposed as a myth. The space race has now officially begun. On April 12, 1961, 27-year-old Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin climbs aboard the Vostok 1.
That kid went and put his butt on a rocket. No one knew what was going to happen to his mind, to his body, to anything.
As the rocket lifts off, Gagarin says the words that will earn him a place in space exploration history.
And he sat in that rocket and said, "Off we go." As soon as it lifted off, he gave a shout of glee that he was on the flight. That was the best first words on a space flight you can imagine. And that's why he earned his place in history.
Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev recognizes the propaganda value of these Soviet accomplishments. To him, this is not simply a matter of national pride. It's a matter of persuading the world of the superiority of the communist system. At this point, the United States trailed the Soviets in the space race. Then, President Kennedy countered with a dramatic announcement before a special joint session of Congress.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.
It is September 12, 1962, a steamy, hot day in Houston, Texas. President Kennedy reaffirms his quest to send a man to the moon. A young student witnesses the powerful message, Jerry Woodfill.
I was at Rice University, and I joined those other 35 to 40,000 people from Houston, and I listened to those words.
Some would have us stay where we are a little longer, to rest, to wait. But this city of Houston, this state of Texas, this country of the United States was not built by those who waited and rested and wished to look behind them.
And they were transforming words. There was a charisma that President John Kennedy had. It was just unusually powerful.
We shall send to the moon a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall, carrying all the equipment needed for propulsion, guidance, control, communications, food, and survival on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body, and then return it safely to Earth, re-entering the atmosphere at speeds of over 25,000 miles per hour, causing heat about half that on the temperature of the sun, almost as hot as it is here today, and do all this, and do all this, and do it right, and do it first before this decade is out, then we must be bold.
I wanted to be part of that adventure because of what the president said to me that day. It was like he was speaking directly to me.
Many years ago, the great British explorer George Mallory, who was to die on Mount Everest, was asked why did he want to climb it. He said, because it is there. Well, space is there, and we're going to climb it. And the moon and the planets are there, and new hopes for knowledge and peace are there. And therefore, as we set sail, we ask God's blessing on the most hazardous and dangerous and greatest adventure on which man has ever embarked. Thank you.
Coming up, on a Gemini mission, astronaut Neil Armstrong faces a perilous situation.
We got serious problems here with the hand over end.
Welcome back to Xploration Outer Space. In order to send a man to the moon, NASA first had to learn how to connect one spacecraft to another while in orbit. This maneuver is called a rendezvous, and that's what the Gemini program was all about. Gemini 8. Astronauts Neil Armstrong and Dave Scott embark on a mission to rendezvous and dock with another spacecraft. It will be the first such docking in space. They find the other spacecraft and move towards it, inch by inch, until they finally dock.
Looking good on the ground. Go ahead and dock.
Suddenly, the two spacecraft begin to gyrate.
07.
Armstrong decides to detach from the other spacecraft, thinking the problem lies with it rather than his own spacecraft. But he's wrong. When they detach, the motions get worse and they start spinning.
We got serious problems here with the hand over end.
The spinning motion becomes so severe that the astronauts are in danger of blacking out. If they cannot get control, the unimaginable can occur. 2 dead astronauts orbiting the Earth. Armstrong, who would later command Apollo 11, finally solves the problem and manages to stabilize the spinning spacecraft just in time. They head home and land safely, unharmed. James Hansen, author of the Armstrong biography, First Man.
Neil was kind of depressed after Gemini 8 because he had high hopes to have a really good flight. NASA management itself thought actually just the opposite, that Neil kind of proved himself even more by handling the situation the way that he did. They didn't die. They did get their spacecraft stabilized.
Both the US and the Soviet Union are learning that spacewalks are difficult to train for. Although the Soviets keep it a secret, a Russian cosmonaut named Alexei Leonov struggles with an inflated spacesuit and almost loses his life on a spacewalk. US astronaut Gene Cernan likewise has a near-death experience on Gemini 9. The problem is, how on Earth can astronauts prepare for spacewalks? One of the answers is neutral buoyancy training.
Feet now. Roger.
Working inside a pool, astronauts more closely experience the weightless environment of space. Astronaut Buzz Aldrin is a big proponent of it.
Gene Cernan had huge problems with just the exertion because the suits are really, really stiff. And my dad said, because he had been scuba diving for a few years, we should really start thinking about using underwater training for this. And I think he was dismissed by a lot of people. But then once they started doing it and figuring out how to work underwater, they realized that it was very effective.
By the time Aldrin does his spacewalk on Gemini 12, the problems are worked out, due in large part to the neutral buoyancy training he championed.